the decision to prosecute the former president?
Well, it wasn't actually a decision to prosecute him. It was a decision not to drop the charges, because the Supreme Court of Appeal had already made it clear that there was a valid decision to charge the president. So this was just a question of, should the charges be dropped again? And the NPA said, in line with the SCA judgment, that no, they are not going to drop the charges because there is a winnable case.
Look, Prof, does the former president have any legal framework to appeal this decision? Because we did hear Mr. Abrahams making it very adamant in his decision. They're saying that he has instructed his team not to give an appeal to the former president.
Well, I don't think there's an appeal to this decision, in the sense that the decision is now made. Theoretically, the president could challenge the decision not to drop the charges, but that will never hold water in a court of law. His next option is to approach the court and to ask the court to have a permanent stay of prosecution, so that the court decides whether he is capable of getting a fair trial. And that could be done, of course. That is what was, so that is a possibility.
All right, and Prof, I want to get your views on why do you think finally they decided on 16 and not the 18 charges to be brought against the former president?
That I don't know. I wasn't part of the team that made the decision. Usually when this happens, and one has to give the benefit of the doubt to the NPA, it is usually because they feel they cannot secure conviction on those other charges. So I would assume this is the same issue, the same principle here.
All right. And Prof, just another one. Do you think today's decision by Mr. Shaun Abrahams, do you think it will go far in restoring the public trust in the entity that is the NPA?
Well, the decision, of course, the NPA was severely criticized also by the Supreme Court of Appeal in the judgment, the so-called spy tapes judgment. In that judgment, they made it very clear that the NPA really had no other choice but to continue with the prosecution. Whether this now restores the credibility, I think maybe it's a little bit early to say. We will have to wait and see.
All right, and Prof, what do you think about this when it comes to the rumored political influence, whether back then in terms of Mr. Mshe, and in this case, looking at how everything is unfolding with Mr. Ramaphosa and even, of course, Mr. Abrahams?
Well, what what the Supreme Court of Appeal has said is that, there might well be from time to time considerations taken into account that are political, and that's not a good idea. But if there's a winnable case, and if the decision was taken to actually secure a conviction, that is what matters. And that is, so you can't just drop charges because there might have been some problem with one person, might have had some other ulterior purpose. If the aim was always to secure a conviction, unless the person cannot get a fair trial, the trial must continue.
All right, and Prof, before I let you go, just one more thing that I need clarity on. I mean, we've heard this phrase that back then the wrong law was actually used to drop the charges back then. Talk to us about that. Do you think everything was considered now coming into this decision?
Well, in the past, of course, when the charges were originally dropped by Mr. Mshe, he invoked provisions that were inappropriate. In this particular case, there was no dropping of the charges. The court had already ruled that there must be a prosecution, so the original decision had revived, so to speak, from the dead. There was no reason to invoke a section to drop charges, because that is not the decision that was actually taken.
Professor, thank you so much for your sound analysis there. Thank you so much. That is Professor Pierre de Vos joining us via phone and Skype, and also giving us analysis on that decision by Mr. Shaun Abrahams a while ago to prosecute or bring those charges against the former President Jacob Zuma. I hand you now back to Peter, who's still sitting with Mr. Aldrin Sampier.